You know, when people think of YouTuber movies, they probably picture something like Logan Paul's movie. But I highly doubt anyone was expecting anything like Iron Lung before this year started. Based on the indie horror game of the same name, Iron Lung was a passion project from Markiplier, who spent nearly 3 years bringing the film to life as the writer, producer, director, and star of the film. You can feel that dedication throughout the entire movie. The story follows a prisoner sent on a mission across an ocean of blood in a tiny submarine. It's a very simple premise, but the film uses that small space to create incredibly tense atmosphere, much like the game. The film relies less on jump scares and more on suspense, mystery, and fear of the unknown to drive the story. What really got me hooked in the first few minutes, the atmosphere of being in this small, cramped sub, unsettling sound design, and constant feeling that something is lurking just out of view. Mark also gives an amazingly believable performance. More so than I think people were actually expecting, and he has to, because the movie spends majority of the time with just him. And he did a fantastic job. That said, I think the movie definitely is a slow burn, and if you're someone looking for a non-stop action psychological horror, you might not like this one. And the movie has a deliberate, open-ended ending that can be left up to interpretation. Iron Lung was the start of the 2026 YouTuber movie renaissance. As it proved with its $3 million budget that grossed over $50 million, you don't need an overly inflated budget to produce a good film. And Markiplier's self-made project gets a
Yes! Yes! Yeah! Hell yeah!
obsession comes from the mind of Curry Barker, who before this was well known for being the co-creator of the viral YouTube sketch comedy channel called That's a Bad Idea. And at its core, Obsession is a psychological horror that explores the dark side of romantic fixations and control. The story follows Bear, played by Michael Johnston, whose life is slowly falling apart thanks to his unhealthy obsession with his crush. The movie starts off completely normal and quickly becomes one of the most unsettling things I've seen in quite some time. And just like Iron Lung, it's a slow burn that's gradually building up the tension scene by scene. And Indy Navarrete, who plays Nikki in the movie, is hands down the reason it works so well. The subtle facial expressions, the changes in tone, the unhingedness, all helped build that tension to its peak. It doesn't rely on any big scares or shocking moments. The movie just keeps on building that feeling of discomfort. Even the smallest things start to feel wrong. Conversations start feeling a little off, and you're just there, waiting for something to snap. The performances all around in this movie is what makes it so believable. And in a horror like this, where the tension just keeps on building and building to the inevitable payoff, the performances need to help you get there successfully. And this was amazingly well done. The movie never stopped being engaging to me. It's a great addition to the psychological horror genre, and once again, it proves that YouTubers need to be taken seriously when it comes to cinema.
It was perfect.
When the Backrooms first blew up online in 2019, it was just a creepy 4chan post that quickly morphed into a huge creepypasta and digital folklore phenomenon. A young 16-year-old kid named Kane Parsons would publish his first ever viral YouTube short clip about the Backrooms in 2022. And now, 4 years later, he's back to put his vision onto the big screen. The Backrooms follows the idea of someone accidentally slipping into a liminal, never-ending maze space. There's no real feeling of safety. You don't know which way you're supposed to go, and there's no guarantee that you're alone in this space. So the concept leans heavily into the feeling of isolation and confusion, and to its credit, it does a good job conveying that type of fear. It doesn't try to overly explain what's happening, and I love it for that. What didn't surprise me at all was the performances from Chiwetel Ejiofor and Renata Reinsve, who I think are both very underrated actors. Just watch Dirty Pretty Things and The Worst Person in the World. You'll thank me later. Chiwetel plays his role with the real grounded seriousness of someone trying to rationally figure out what is happening in a completely irrational situation. And you can see bit by bit, as the stress is starting to build up throughout the movie, he is losing himself. Renata is basically the complete opposite, as her character is way more reactive and panicky about the whole situation, which balances out nicely, and overall, the Backrooms lived up to the hype, and I'm interested to see what Parsons is going to do next. Maybe a sequel? Maybe a completely new project. All I know is I'll definitely be watching, and the Backrooms 2026 gets a...
secures it. A triple kill.
You know, with all the drama that has been surrounding this movie lately, I'm sure we all know by now about how it leaked online and then spiraling into a huge argument between the creator and the fans about her response to the whole thing. I'm glad I put my head down, put the blinders on, and avoided all potential spoilers or negative talk to cloud my judgment, and went in to see this with an open mind. 'Cause I think being the first indie YouTube series ever to air on the big screen is a big deal, right? And it deserved at least that much. No judgment, no preconceived opinions, just go in and enjoy. When The Amazing Digital Circus first aired online, it felt like one of those rare internet shows that had mainstream potential. So when it was announced that the last act was going to be a feature-length theatrical release, I was game. The film continues the surreal digital nightmare world we've become so accustomed to. Colorful and vibrant on the surface, but deeply unsettling when you really think about it. What really stood out to me was the amazing performances from all the voice actors and the huge amount of emotional weight they brought to each character. That being said, the movie does at times become so overly chaotic and abstract that there are moments where the emotional bits gets lost in all the visual overload. But that's just a small gripe I had. Overall, I thought the animation was great, the voice acting was top-notch, and the story was very well handled. And The Amazing Digital Circus The Last Act gets a... Thanks for watching, and like and subscribe for more.